This is Miles Murphy. Make sure to check out Clemson Insider's most complete football coverage. Nobody does it better.
All right, welcome back to the TCI studio. Davis here, Robert here. We actually got real football to talk about, not just seeing a little bit of practice and doing interviews. Davis, we actually got to see 2 full practices, which is very unusual for Dabo Swinney. Surprised us Friday and let us know he was going to do that, open up the first 2 practices fully to the media. He knew it's been a while since we've been able to get out there and cover things, and it's awesome. We got to see a whole lot. We're going to do 3 videos for you guys here from the studio and talk about offense, what we saw, defense, what we saw, freshman, what we saw. Davis, let's start off with offense. Obviously, your first time seeing the team, and it was a great experience for you to be able to see them that much in depth for that period of time. What were some of the things that stood out at you from an offensive perspective?
Well, first of all, to your point, I'm still sort of pinching myself over the fact that we got to see 2 full days worth of practice. I mean, that's for anybody that doesn't, that's unheard of in this climate of college football. I still contend that college football coaches are among the most paranoid group of people in America. But as far as on-field stuff, my biggest impression offensively is the receiver group. I mean, that group they're deep. They're big. That's the biggest thing to me. I mean, and Justin Ross isn't even out there yet. For anybody that's read our coverage, Justin Ross was cleared medically to return, but he's still out right now because he's in COVID protocol. I think Dabo said he's supposed to be back on Friday. So he'll be out there sooner rather than later. But even without him, I mean, you got Joseph Ngata, Frank Ladson Jr. I mean, those guys, they're all 6'3" or taller, it seems like.
2 freshmen, college are both 6'4".
Yeah, so that group, that immediately catches your eye. And I know Clemson fans probably known about that group for a while because they've been around a while and they're ready for guys to sort of take that next step and stay healthy. Particularly like a guy like Ngata. I know that he was a highly recruited kid that a lot of people are waiting to see what he can do if he can stay healthy. That seems to be the key with him. But yeah, that group, if they're able to stay healthy and they get Justin Ross back, I mean, they're going to be in trouble for any defense to try to contain. And then the running back position, I think Kobe Pace, at least on the first day, now they're doing a lot of rotating, obviously, just getting guys in with different groups and seeing how they mesh. But Kevin Pace has taken a lot of the first team reps at running back, and then obviously Will Shipley, for a guy that didn't know about him before I got here and didn't keep up his recruiting or anything, to watch that guy run. And that's sort of been the buzz all these first 2 days is Will Shipley's fast. I mean, you ask anybody what their impressions are, it's the guy's fast. I think Jordan McFadden said, he could be the fastest guy on the team. So, and it's interesting, he's already, seems like he's getting some reps with the 2s. So it seems like, I mean, mixing in. So, he's obviously going to have a role on this offense, and I think he's probably going to, me and you have talked off camera about, we probably think he may have a pretty good role in the return game, at least as far as punt return. But yeah, his speed is different than anybody else out there. I mean, he's just, once he gets to the line, he's running away from people. By a wide margin. That's not necessarily the case with all those other running backs. And then the backup quarterback situation. With Tyson, I'm not going to say his last name right here because I'll butcher it, but the fact that he's out there, it doesn't seem like he's limited a whole lot. Now he's there when he's taking part in certain passing drills and team drills, individual periods, but not everything. He's
kind of safer drills.
Yeah, just pretty much the straight drop backs. He's taking part in, but anything. I think they're just sort of wanting to, since he's so close to being back from that injury. I think they're being cautious and. So anything like lateral mobility, I think they're sort of keeping him out of right now. But I mean, I think considering he just had a significant injury with that Achilles tear the last day of spring, for him to be this close to returning, apparently, I think that's pretty amazing. And I don't think they want to do anything to risk a setback, considering the lack of depth or proven depth that they have at that position. Past him and DJ. But that's the biggest thing, and the offensive line, still trying to find maybe some guy, at center. I think Mason Trotter has been taking a lot of reps at one, but again, they're rotating a lot of guys right now on. I think between Dabo and Robert Caldwell, the offensive line coach, I think they want to get as many guys reps as possible, so they can try to find that right combination. Because as has been talked about and written about, I mean they don't have any time to waste. Opener, with that Georgia defensive line they're going to face.
Robbie Caldwell likes to cross train. We saw some movement in and out there. One of the things I noticed was Tate playing some second team guard. We saw Tristan Lay, 5-star freshman in there. He's just got to learn the system.
Mm-hmm.
He was playing some second team left tackle. They were rolling different folks in there. Had Bockhorst even playing some center. Bockhorst, Rayburn, and Trotter all lining up different times at center. As you said, they were doing a lot of rotations.
Yeah.
Part of that's just cross-training that they like to do, and part of that's just kind of figuring out what their pieces are. Most of that really is to kind of figure out how they can get, I think they feel good about the starting 5, but they want to feel good about their,
Right.
number 8, number 7, number 9.
Yeah, you got to go into a game with
some of that.
at least 7, 8 guys that you're confident in, can play. Particularly when you're opening up against Georgia.
Yep.
You got to find things out in a hurry.
So good things there. As you said, the biggest question, the receivers look great. There were a couple of guys that got dinged up during some of the practices, and everybody's kind of holding their breath saying, "Oh no, not again," because Clemson went through, just a ton of injuries at the wide receiver position last year. Running back, I think it's just a matter of time before Shipley is firmly in the number 3 spot, if not
number 2.
further.
I was about to say.
MJ was rolling out there number 2 in most of the scenarios, and of course, he was the heir apparent to Travis at one point, but things have changed a little bit. So it's it's going to be interesting to see how they try to keep that group happy. Hopefully they don't worry about keeping them happy and they just play the guys that come in and deserve the time. When Travis came in, there was a guy named Peyton Feaster who was a 5-star here.
Yeah.
Travis won the job, took off. What were some of the things that concerned you from what you saw?
Well, again, it's been 2 days, but as talented and experienced as that receiver group was, there was a lot of drop passes the other day.
Yes.
During their team periods. I don't. Maybe that's just chalking up to a bad day. I don't know. Those guys are more talented than that. And again, it may have just been a bad day. You got 20-something practices before your first game. Not everything's going to look great. No excuses not going to be great. It's not going to be perfect, but obviously you got to be able to shore that up because DJ needs to be able to trust his guys when he's throwing them the ball, and you get guys that are dropping a lot of passes. Well, then he's going to hesitate. Even if they're open, he's going to hesitate to pull the trigger sometimes. But again, it's very early. Maybe that was just chalking up to a bad day possibly, but that's something that you obviously don't want to become a pattern. And then offensive line, maybe the depth there, because they are having to, you mentioned Tristan Lay, there's Marcus Tate. They're already rotating some of those freshmen in with the 1s and 2s. So, I don't know if they have, great depth at that position right now, because I think they are having to rely on a lot of youngsters.
They have a lot of, I guess,
at least after the
inexperienced
first game.
they had a good core that group last year, guys that didn't play a ton that are going to play more roles this year. Lay was, one of the top tackles in the country, so you kind of expect him to move in there pretty quick. Tate from Fort Lauderdale was also, very highly recruited, so sometimes those guys can move in and contribute right away. It's harder to do that on the offensive line. One position we didn't talk about is tight ends. Number of guys there: Braden Galloway, Davis Allen. Everybody got to kind of see what they could do last year. Jalen Lay is a different person. Physically, just looks like a totally different person, kind of like Xavier Thomas. He's transformed his body. Looked really good out there. Brenningstool, the freshman, to me looked probably more ready to contribute early than what I've seen from some of the tight ends coming through the last couple of years. So it's going to be interesting to see, kind of like running back, you got a good group of talent there. It's going to be interesting to see who kind of moves ahead and plays significant playing time.
Yeah, they've got tons of options there. It's not like they don't have depth at tight end. It's just a matter of kind of sorting out that pecking order. And maybe I don't know with the kind of talent they have a receiver if you'll ever see multiple tight ends on the field a whole lot. But I think that's something they could probably do. They all look the part. You mentioned Brenningstool. He's 6'5", 6'6", coming in here is one of the most highly recruited tight ends in the country last year. And obviously there's going to be the learning curve growing pain. We saw Dabo sort of light into him the first day of camp because he was Dabo was upset they didn't recognize the coverage during one of the team periods after the snap. I think Dabo was basically saying, they're not going to tell you what they're running the defense.
Right.
Like you got to know that. So and you come into a program like Clemson, there's high expectations.
Yeah.
But
and a lot of those top recruits, they get a lot of attention from the staff because those guys want to accelerate their learning curve and figure out how to get them on the field and use them.
Yeah, and going back to running back, I think and Dabo hit on this. I said on this in the preseason. He likes that group. Now they just don't have the production to go with it right now. But you got a guy like Linjay stepping in. Probably has been Travis's primary backup the last handful of years. But the fact that Kobe Pace has been getting a lot of 1 reps, and then Will Shipley. I mean, there's been so much buzz about him these first 2 days, and I don't think that's just buzz. I mean, I think it's very clear that he's got a different type of skill set at that position that they plan to use from day one.
Yeah, they just got to find a way to get him in space, whether that's on returns or out of the backfield. I saw him splitting him out some at receiver from the backfield. So they're going to find a way to get the ball in his hands in space if possible. We didn't see that much in the spring game. Every time he got the ball, there seemed to be a swarm around him, but I think we'll see something different. So that's a flavor of 2 days of camp, all in shorts, so still early on. We'll get to see them Thursday. They'll be out there in pads. But those are some of the highlights. A lot more. Make sure you check out our notebooks that our staff has done. Davis, I think you had offense day 2.
I did.
And Alex had offense day 1. So a lot of good stuff in there as well. Make sure you check all out. Stay tuned to the Clemson Insider for the most complete coverage of Clemson football, Clemson recruiting, and Clemson athletics. Okay,
All right.
1 down. Who's texting me? Okay, that's recruit. All right, why don't we do defense?
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Do that next.
Mm-hmm.
And you did that day 1, right?
Defense. I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we just got mixed up there at the end, but it's fine.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I did. No, I did offense day 1. Sorry,
Offense,
defense
okay.
yesterday.
Well, they can read stories.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, welcome back to the TCI Studios. Davis and Robert here to talk about 2 days of camp. Got to see the whole session both days, which was a nice gift from Coach Sweeney. Really helps us get things rolling and see everybody out there. We've already done one segment where we focused on the offense. This edition, we're going to focus on the defense. Gosh, I wonder where we should start on defense. Maybe let's talk about the defensive line.
Yeah.
You think they're going to be okay there?
I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to be all right. I mean, the depth at that position. When you talk about offense, the receiver standing out, defense, immediately you look at the defensive front. I mean, basically five starters at defensive end. Brian Brzee, Tyler Davis at defensive tackle.
I think said they've got 7 guys that have started somewhere on the D line.
Yeah, I mean, that group should be maybe the best defensive line in the country this year. I would say at worst top 3, just in terms of sheer talent and depth. Now, obviously, you need to keep that depth intact during the season. There's going to be injuries, things are going to happen, but I mean, if there's one team that could withstand an injury or 2 up front on their defensive line, it's Clemson, and not a whole lot of teams have that luxury.
Well, and I think those guys are going to push each other.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed a little bit, and just to put day 1 and day 2, Xavier Thomas. We heard about him preseason. He kind of talked on social media about how he's a different player. Saw that. Body's transformed. He's down in the 260s. He's got that speed, top speed, as good as I've seen him at Clemson, probably better. Saw him running through the end of every drill, kind of trying to be the leader, be the first guy out there. Brian Brzee also doing a lot of leadership things, but I think Miles Murphy and Xavier Thomas, there's going to be a lot of battles there for playing time. Justin Maskell, saw him running with the ones yesterday, I think, day 2. So just a ton of talent. KJ Henry, so defensive end, they're set. That's poor Cade Denhoff comes in and they're a freshman. He's a really good, talented freshman, but he's like, gosh, look at these guys in front of me. And then in the middle with Brzee and Davis, as good as anybody in the country. I know you obviously saw this on TV in 2018. You saw what that group of Power Rangers did for Clemson, and that was that game where they absolutely blew Alabama out of the building in the national championship game. this defensive line, a lot of folks, a lot of talk about whether this team up front will rival that team. Let's talk a little bit about some of the areas where there may be some more question marks. The secondary, corner, safety. Obviously, anybody that watched the Ohio State game knows there were folks running up wide open all over the field in the secondary. So, and Clemson's lost some players. Obviously, they'll face one of them, Kendrick, when they battle Georgia. But I liked what I saw from some of the folks. I saw some good improvement. Andrew Booth, as Dabo said, what was his favorite word he used? Availability.
Availability. Best ability is availability.
How's he going to be better? Availability.
Yeah.
He's looked good out there. He and Ngata were going kind of head to head a couple times yesterday in the one-on-one drills and some really good battles there. But again, he's got to be able to be available and do that consistently. Who are some of the guys in the secondary that you noticed?
Well, Malcolm Green, just in terms of versatility, because he's a guy that Dabo's talked about is going to cross-train at some nickel and corner, and he was out there taking reps with nickel and some of the Sam linebacker group during individual drills and team periods, and that's one guy obviously that can give you some versatility there. But Fred Davis, the fact that he's hasn't missed a practice yet, he's obviously was hit with that reckless driving charge from that auto accident that happened last month, and Dabo said he's going to be facing consequences for that for a long time. It's interesting to hear Dabo talk. He's unlike a dad. Just at this point, that's not in his character. Just poor decision making. But it doesn't sound like whatever discipline he faces is going to including missed practice time.
Yeah, I think practice time. No.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what the game plan is. Right.
Right. Yeah.
How many games? I expect him to miss at least a game, probably multiple games, but we don't know.
We have no idea.
We'll have to see.
But
he looked pretty good out there.
He did, yeah. They all did. And look, you got the receiver. They do a lot of the one-on-one drills where the receivers are going up against DBs. And, I think through the first 2 days, I think receivers have won most of those. And look, again, I think that speaks to more of the talent of Clemson because they're going to make a lot of secondaries look bad. If DJ has time to throw and he can sit back there and pick apart defenses and when he wants to go with the ball, he's got a plethora of weapons on the outside. It's going to be hard for any defense, as we mentioned in our other video, to stop what they're doing in the passing game if they're able to, particularly stay relatively healthy at that position. But there's
a great way for those guys to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not going to go up against better receivers on Saturday.
Absolutely.
In a game.
Not at all. No. So.
And what I was trying to notice, exactly what you said with the secondary, and the same thing for me with the linebackers, just were they in the right position, right? You might not always win that 50-50 ball against the Clemson receivers, but are you there?
Yeah.
Or did the receivers run a route and you're over here and they're over here? And most cases, it looked like they were in the right places. There were some. Some concerns I saw where they just got beat on the route, things like that.
And I know that's something you mentioned to me yesterday. Is like the coverage in the middle of the field, particularly at the linebackers. What's that going to look like? I have seen Brent Venables sometimes pull some of those linebackers aside and seems like really getting in their ear about maybe a missed assignment or whatever it is. That's going to be an interesting position to watch just in terms of their pass coverage because James Scalzi, everybody talks about him being back for his 6th year, but when he goes up against athletic tight ends in that group and people that can stretch the field vertically down that seam, they're going to have guys that can run with those guys that can cover them.
Yeah, Spector and Scalzi against the run, exactly what you want. They're going to be in great shape, knowledge of the game, all of that, but that's where they had their problems, is in coverage. Now, will the defensive line that we talked about be just so good they can get enough pressure that they can help those linebackers out? But just even yesterday watching, there were a number of times where the middle of Clemson's defense looked vulnerable to the pass.
But I think there are also times, you mentioned the defensive line, there were multiple times I pointed out to you, because they blow the whistle, before you get, the defensive line gets their first sack.
And some of those drills,
some of them, like half of those, that was a sack, that would have been a sack, that would have been a sack. So, obviously you want that middle group, that linebacker core to be a little bit better in pass coverage. The defensive line ain't going to get to, as good as they are, as talented as they are, they're not going to be getting to the quarterback in 2 seconds every snap. So, the defensive line can help a lot with that, but they need those guys to be better on their own pass coverage.
Not worried about Simpson, great athlete. He continued to look good out there. Carter, I think, is going to fit into a similar role there, playing some Sam. Bentley was running second team some there at linebacker. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next 3 weeks, how does that depth chart shuffle out there,
right.
and what's important, because Venables is as smart as any defensive coordinator out there.
Yeah.
He saw all the things. He's been scouting what happened last year. We'll see what kind of adjustments he makes. One thing I noticed, we talked about it yesterday, Xavier Thomas, they had him standing up on the edge a lot.
Yes.
Don't remember seeing that a ton in the past. So he will have some things for Georgia that not showing right now, but that will surprise folks when they go out there against that. Anybody else you want to touch on in the defensive side?
Not off the top of my head. It's
Okay.
gonna take me just a little while to learn all the roster and all.
Dabo did
the depth
the
ball
first
position.
2 days of practice just for Davis. He was able to get out there and just build
Yeah.
his knowledge. And, so that obviously we'll all be building that because we've got a bunch of new faces. So
Yeah.
tons of stuff headed your way. Go back and read Davis's notebook, Alex's notebooks the last few days on the defense. A lot more information in there. We've got interviews with a number of folks. I know Skowski's one of the guys we've already talked to as well. We'll have interviews every day this week. We'll be back out on the field for, we think, part of the practice. Who knows? Maybe Dabo will open up the whole practice again Monday and Thursday of this week. So a lot more headed your way on the Clemson Insider. Time to get geared up. Georgia game's less than a month away. Stay tuned to the Clemson Insider for the most complete coverage of Clemson football and Clemson recruiting. Okay. Now we'll do the freshmen.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'll try to.
Yeah.
If you're not.
Might have to carry it.
Yeah, I'll carry some of that, and some of the names if you're not comfortable.
Yeah.
Stellato's one that I'm not comfortable with, so I may not talk a whole lot about him. We'll focus on the guys we are comfortable with.
All right. How do you say? What's the freshman defensive back's name?
Makuba.
Okay.
I think that's right. And I think it's Brenningstool, not Briningstool. I think I said Briningstool in the last one. Let's see. I think those are the big ones that are tough. Maffa, running back, along with Shipley.
Oh yeah.
Peyton
Page.
Page. He's one we talked about was out there in Georgia. We talked about the 2 Collins kids, a receiver. I think it's Stellato. The other receiver, but he ended up getting hurt.
Yeah.
So we won't talk a ton about him. But we'll just give you the flavor.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right. Welcome back to the TCI studio. Davis, Robert, we are going to give you some more information on the first 2 days of practice. Again, we were fortunate to be able to watch the whole thing, both days, Friday and Saturday, which was awesome, especially for the new guys. Some of the guys we had seen in the spring, some of the folks just arrived, and this was their first 2 practices. So we're going to talk a little bit about the freshmen, the 2021 class that's going to play for the first time when Clemson battles Georgia. I guess we got to start. We don't have to, but let's start at running back. We've talked a lot about Shipley and other
Have we mentioned Will Shipley's name?
Hey, did you know he's fast?
Yeah, he is. I've heard that.
I think he could probably win a battle,
a
race
he
there.
He could beat me and you.
I know he could beat me. He's, as advertised, I was saying on the board to somebody earlier today, to me, he looks similar to the way C.J. Spiller looked on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's not as fast as C.J. on the track, but just football speed, he just looks a little different out there. Of course, the key is to get him the ball in space. But, guy like what we saw in 2 days of Will Shipley.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain guys you look at when you get out there and look at them on a football field, you can just look at them and say they've got it. He's got it.
Yep.
I mean, the speed and the different ways that I think Clemson plans on using him. Because, from day one, he's going to have some sort of role. Who knows what that looks like, but not only is he already sort of mixing in with the twos and with the running backs, but there had some formations and plays where they were splitting him out wide in the slot. Certain some team periods during Saturday's practice. So they're going to find a way to get Will Shipley the ball. He's too special a talent and has too much speed not to utilize that from day one.
Right, you got Justin Ross out there wide.
Yeah.
You move Shipley over there on the same side of the field. that presents some problems for the defense.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, you do that, and you got Joseph Ngata on the backside.
On the other side. So I mean, they'll use him and trying to give him the ball. I think as everybody in the nation becomes familiar with his speed and his talent, they'll also, I think, use him. It's time to open up other guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think to that point, just one more guy that the defense has to worry about in the passing game. Defenses now can't load up in the box and start the running game. You know, I mean, that was an issue last year for Clemson when DJ was in there and they tried to make a freshman beat him, and he did a pretty good job of it. But that was sort of some of the problem in the running game was, you know, defenses just, hey, look, we're going to load the box when you don't have Trevor Lawrence and you got to go beat us. And they didn't really have the guys on the outside, you know, with Ross out and some other injuries to do that. And no, you get Ross and Ngata and Frank Latson and you add Will Shipp. I mean, it's like pick your poison out there almost.
Going to be some problems. Maffa, another guy I was very impressed with in the spring. Another guy I thought was going to play a bigger role coming in just based on what he did in Atlanta in high school. You know, continue to show some good flashes out there. You know, obviously nobody's hitting anybody, so can't really tell a lot. I think that's really where he will shine more when, you know, people are trying to tackle him. Let's see. Let's move over to the receivers. Speaking of dangerous weapons, let's talk about the two Collins.
Yeah.
Bo Collins, day one was in the green jersey. Day two moved to a yellow jersey, which is a downgrade for those that don't know. I know he was in a boot in camp. I saw him day one. They were icing his shoulder, so I don't know if the yellow was due to the shoulder or what, but obviously limiting his progression. Dakari Collins out there looks really good.
Yeah.
He was getting, you know, a lot of time out there. Looks great. Again, both of those guys, very tall receivers, exactly what Clemson wants. Of course, Bo Collins played with DJ in high school, so they've already got that chemistry. So some more weapons there. Stiletto looked good day one. Day two, he was in the yellow jersey, so we didn't get to see him there as much. But weapons there. Let's move up. Stay on offense. Move to tight end. Brendan Stool. Just looked to me like he's ready to make an impact. They're pretty deep there at tight end, but I'm interested to see how they'll fit him into the mix. I expect probably maybe see more of an impact later in the season from him as he learns the offense than he will early in the year.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing for him. He certainly looks the part. I mean, he doesn't look like a true freshman coming in here. He's, 6'6", 220, 25 pounds, and yeah, it's sort of that learning curve. I know we mentioned this on another video, but you know, Dabo had to sort of get in his ear about a coverage he expected him to adjust to during a team period when they threw a pass his way, it fell incomplete. So yeah, I mean, obviously there's you know, it's speed of the game is a lot faster. You know, I don't care what high school program you're, but you go from high school to one of the top 5 college football programs in the country right now. There's not only a certain level of expectation, but it's, you know, you don't have time to wait around. I mean, you got to go, and there's so. But it's going to take a little bit of time for any freshman to do that. But yeah, I mean, physically, guys got all the tools. I mean, that's pretty apparent early on.
All right, let's stay on offense. Offensive line. I think the two guys that we're going to see contribute the soonest. Marcus Tate had a really good spring. Saw him mainly a tackle. This week we've seen him in there playing guard some. Tristan Lay just showed up. Physically looks like he's ready to contribute. Was running some second team left tackle, but you know, day two he's got a lot to learn. Right. And again, he wasn't here in the spring. He wasn't an early enrollee, so he's just arriving. Yeah. I expect we'll see him similar maybe to Brendan Stool. We'll see him work more into the playing time as the season progresses.
Yeah, and when was he with the ones? Was Marcus Tate repping with the ones at one point at guard, or was that the twos?
I think it was mainly with the twos.
Okay. But
it may have been ones. I don't know. They were interchanging.
They're just rotating so much. But yeah, we talked about maybe the concern on the offensive line being the lack of experience, depth, and you know the fact. Yeah, and it's hard to play as a true freshman in the offensive line. Just you know with the physical and mental challenges that come with playing that position. But the fact that guys like Marcus Tate, Tristan Lay are already getting some reps with the twos. I mean, you know, 2 days into camp, I think that shows you what the coaches see in their ability, but the expectation that, hey, we're going to need these guys at some point. I mean, you know, based off the lack of depth and just their talent. But I think you're right. I think that's thing where they're going to be the longer the season gets, the more they'll contribute.
Well, one thing Alex and I saw yesterday, Caldwell was getting on Tate a little bit because he wasn't doing a correct read. Matt Bockhorst was over there, and he got on him a lot more than Caldwell did, which I thought was a nice leadership thing from Bockhorst. But I mean, he was really getting on him. But I think it's tied to what you said. They know he can contribute, right. So they're gonna ride him and work him and try to accelerate that growth as much as they can. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you're not getting on somebody that much if you don't think he's got potential that you want to maximize. Right. The harder guys are usually getting on you, the more they believe in your skill set because they know what you can do. But it's a broken record at this point. But freshman is just going to take them a little time to get caught up, particularly at a position that's so physically and mentally demanding with the offensive line.
Yep. So. All right, let's flip sides to defense. Speaking of giving a lot of extra attention, one thing I noticed yesterday was Brent Venables giving Carter a lot of special attention in one of the drills, saying, "Oh no, you're supposed to be up here, back here." He was doing it nicely. He wasn't yelling at him or anything, which, as we know, Venables can do things not nicely if he wants to at times. But Carter was just physically, we talked in another studio edition about his one-handed catch he made on Friday, but just, athletically, he looks the part. They played him I know there's been talk about whether he'll play safety or whether he'll play linebacker. He's been playing linebacker from what I've seen the first 2 days. More kind of Sam linebacker position, but he's another one. They got to accelerate his learning curve, and then they got to figure out how to get him on the field because he is a different athlete than some of the guys they've got out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we talked about so much about the depth of the defensive line, but not only the depth, but some of the newcomers that are coming in. And you mentioned his athleticism. He basically jumped up with 1 foot and caught an interception one-handed and got a toe down before going out of bounds. That's a special talent. Just physically, that's a special. And that seems to be a trend. Is like all these guys look the part, they fit the part athletically, physically. But it's going to be interesting to see. You mentioned Xavier Thomas doing the 2-point stance. What is Brent going to put in? Make some different. Does he have between the guys that have already been here and the talent, raw talent that's coming in? Do they mix it up? They go maybe more 3-man front, maybe go more nickel and dime packages on the back end, just sort of mixing it up to try to use and get as much talent on the field, playmaking talent on the field as they possibly can.
Speaking of playmakers, another guy that we saw cross-training, Makuba, came in as a safety. They've got some depth issues at corner. We saw him yesterday playing some corner, and again, he was getting some special coaching over there saying, "Oh no, you should go this way instead of that way." Yeah. But just physically, he looks the part. He's got great range. Just a different athlete than some of the guys we've got in the safety position as well. So another guy that I think they're gonna, try to get more playing time. The good news, as Clemson fans know, is Dabo plays more players than anybody in the country probably, and he's gonna put guys out there, second quarter of the game, meaningful snaps, and he's gonna play a lot of the guys in the second half if the scores get out of hand, which they will a lot in the game. So a lot of those guys are going to get playing time early in the season against real opponents, and that's going to allow them to accelerate their learning.
Yeah, and another freshman we talked about at corner, Nate Wiggins. He's in that top 6 that Dabo talks about as far as loving the depth at that position. So they've got all sorts of options. I don't know what it's been like in the past. You said Dabo plays a lot of players, but the depth that they have, they might start rotating guys in like middle of the first series. It's just. Again, this is assuming that you stay relatively healthy because there's the bumps and bruises you have with every college football season. You just hope they're not serious. So if they can keep that depth intact, that's going to be a huge advantage for them.
Well, and that's why Dabo builds the depth, in case you do run into those injuries. And Clemson saw a lot of that last year, and we saw some guys that weren't prepared at times.
Yeah. It's just that
hopefully they'll be more prepared.
Yeah, it's just that most teams don't have this kind of depth. It's crazy. I know we're talking about freshmen here, but just along the defensive front, the fact that you have almost 6 deep at defensive end itself is crazy.
All right. Hopefully that got y'all a little excited about some of the future for Clemson and some of these great freshmen. And some of them will make big impacts this year, and some of them maybe year 2, year 3. But a lot of these guys are going to make big impacts before they leave campus. All right. That's our final video from the first 2 days of camp. We'll have a lot more headed your way this week. We'll be out there covering practice Monday through Saturday, and we'll get back in the studio a lot more for you guys this week. So stay tuned to Clemson Insider for the most complete coverage of Clemson football and recruiting.